Okay, that's good. Let's begin.
Okay.
We did it, gang.
Hey, did you hear about what Kanye West said today?
What was that?
Did you hear about what Kanye West said recently?
No.
I don't even know what it is, and it's making me laugh.
What did
Okay,
he
The
say?
thought of Kanye West saying things.
So Kanye West recently released his new album, Jesus is King, after his whole conversion to Christianity, or what one might very loosely call Christianity.
Is this Kanye's Snoop Lion phase where everyone's gonna forget about it in a year and be like, "Wow, that was weird"?
God, I hope so.
Is that the name
What
of
he
the
said.
album?
No, that his
Jesus
name.
is King?
Yes.
Jesus is King is the name of the album.
Yeah.
Is
And-
it like a Christian album?
Yeah, sort of. I don't know. That's what I've heard. I haven't actually listened
Well,
to it because
I've-
I don't
I've-
listen to bad music.
I can't believe all it took for people to call him out on his music being terrible was for him to be a Trump supporter.
So today he said. So recently he said that after he converted to being a born again Christian, God rewarded him by giving him a $68 million tax refund.
What? Why does he have a refund of that amount?
Because Donald Trump and the
Space tax?
Republicans passed a tax cut for the rich people. So if by God gave him a tax refund, he means
Trump.
Trump, he's right.
I like to imagine that Kanye West is woefully misconstruing what Christianity what it is, and he thinks it's actually worshiping Donald Trump, so he just has a shrine of him that he prays to, and Kim is too upset to tell him the truth because she knows it'll break his heart, so she just lets him do it.
Honestly, given the way televangelists on the TV talk about Trump, I wouldn't be surprised. They basically describe him as the second coming of Jesus, and that he's like this person who's going to save the country, and they basically say he's the new King David.
Huh.
They're complete dumbasses. They're just defending him because he's defending the socially conservative agenda that they like, and because they like his politics, they're defending him as a person. But enough about that. I just wanted to also say that Kanye apparently wanted nobody working on his record to have sex or to have premarital sex while they were working on it.
What?
What?
He said, "Don't have sex outside of marriage while you're working on my album because I want it to be pure and holy."
How would he know?
He didn't
how's he gonna
know. He
enforce
just
that?
asked. He just asked them to.
Yeah, but how would he know? Okay, let's say I'm working on his album. How would he know that I did something?
He would know.
Oh.
He's got eyes everywhere. He's got enough money to pay that many private investigators to fucking track you.
If he suspects, Anna might do something.
He's probably got everyone secretly wearing a wire unbeknownst to them. He's just been slipping them in everyone's purse or in their music bag or on the bottom of their laptop. Everyone's got a recording device on them, and if he hears the sound of and some moaning, he's like, hey, this is wrong, get out.
They could be just listening to a really nice record and clapping.
Yeah.
But you know what they say about Christians? Dancing is worse than sex. Isn't this supposed to be a
Who
movie
says that?
podcast?
Yeah, what movies are we going to talk about? I could talk about how I left the country for 2 weeks and went to a foreign land and met a nice lady.
She sounds like a nice lady. Good thing, although I've never met her.
Yeah, no. She's quite a foreign entity to the YouTube channel. We don't.
I've
really
never
talk about her a lot.
Sounds like a person I've never talked to before.
she's a swell fella. A fell swella, the kind of lady.
A swell fella? Does that mean
all...
that she's a man? Because fellas are mans.
She's better at video games than a man, and that's pretty cool. And,
I'll bet. Speaking of video games, I'll bet she presses your buttons.
Oh my! Oh jeez! Oh god! What? No. We only played Resident Evil 3 the whole time I was there. We didn't do anything else.
I know for a fact that that's not true.
We just played some video games, man.
You didn't just play Resident Evil 3. Did you, or did you not, play Dead Space like
We
the
did.
degenerates that you are?
We played Dead Space for an afternoon, too.
I can't be friends with you anymore. It's like I don't know you anymore. You're doing these unholy things like playing Dead Space.
No, hey, it's okay. Hey, we also watch Ninja Turtles.
Oh, okay. Now that's wholesome. So
that's actually code for something horrible.
I don't give a shit. You know, I can talk about something else that's not quite video games if you'd be... it's video games if you'd be interested.
Video games? What are those?
Because I've been playing The Outer Worlds. It's that new game.
How's that? It's that new Fallout game that's not a Fallout game, but it's pretty close to a Fallout game.
It's kind of a Fallout game. If I were to describe it, I would say it's a mixture of a Fallout game and those Knights of the Old Republic games from the early 2000s. Not the RPG, The Old Republic, but the MMORPG, The Old Republic, but the ones that came before that. Like the BioWare one in like 2000.
So some good old KOTOR.
Yeah, KOTOR mixed with The Outer Worlds. Or Fallout.
So, like,
it's
kind of like early Mass Effect, since that was a lot more KOTOR.
Kind of, but it's kind of early Mass Effect and KOTOR in, like, the game mechanics and the design, the construction of the world. And then it's more Fallout in the story sensibilities, the theming, and the character interactions. It also has a non-copyright infringing version of VATS.
Which is Bullet Time.
Basically.
Which was already the name that they had for it in Max Payne.
Basically.
How new is that game? I haven't heard
It
about
came
that.
out on Friday.
Oh.
Last Friday.
Oh, okay. So it's super new.
It's really new.
You know what? I'm
And it
just
was-
as out of the loop as she is, because, like, I saw the announcement trailer for it at E3 or Paris Games or whatever it was, like forever ago, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm glad that they're making another one of those, since, like, you know, Bethesda won't really let them do a proper Fallout these days. And that's
You know-
about all I've kept up with it. I haven't seen a trailer. I don't know what the gameplay looks like.
You know, I
don't
wonder.
really
You know,
anything about
I'm
the
glad that.
story.
You know, the other thing that happened right when The Outer Worlds came out was Fallout 76 was stupid and bad and broken again. And I feel like there's no better publicity for The Outer Worlds than Fallout
It's better
being
than
shit.
all the current Fallout games.
Because, Xavier, you played Fallout 4, right?
Yeah.
I hated it. I played like 3 hours of it and then I quit because I couldn't stand it anymore.
I've never played it. Any of
Fallout 4. You see, the thing that I really like about
You know,
Fallout.
okay, here's the thing. I gotta say, your opinion isn't really fair on it, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I, however, by contrast, played about 60 hours of it, and then I hated it. So my hating it is more informed. I got to a point too where I was like, I can't keep fucking doing this.
Wait,
I'm
so-
like not having
you're
fun.
saying-
it feels
you're
like
saying you
clocking
played-
into work.
You're saying you played 60 hours of it and you hated it? If you really hated it, why would you let yourself...
Because
you
it
know-
started out great, and I was having a lot of fun at the start, and then it just kept going. It kept getting slowly worse until I was like, I didn't have any fun with it anymore, and I just didn't want to look at it ever again.
I decided to quit Fallout 4 right when they gave me a power armor suit for the first time. That's like really early.
They give you that in like the first like hour or two if you play it like kind of fast. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't feel earned.
It pissed me off because the power armor suit is supposed to be something you get late game in a Fallout game to if you want to be a bit of a tank by the end of it.
I mean, like in Fallout 3, they give it to you kind of like before like the final 2 boss areas.
And if you want to get it in New Vegas,
you have
to
so earned.
If you want to do it in New Vegas, you have to go through a very specific quest line to do it. And you get to earn feeling like a badass at the end of the game. But if they just give it to you in the first hour, it completely ruins the experience. And that made me think that whoever made this game didn't really get what a Fallout game was supposed to be about.
Well, I mean, like, the dialogue trees are, like, just completely redone to be basically Mass Effect, but worse. A lot of the base management stuff felt like Farmville after a while, and that's what really killed my interest in it, is, like, after a certain point, I just got so tired of babysitting all of the different base settlements, and, like, getting harassed for it. Like, every time I would go back to my castle that I built at the, I don't know, I can't even remember what it was. There was, like, a military base that's, like, shaped like an octagon or something, and then you can repair the walls on it and kill some bugs there. I built a castle there, basically, and that was fun. But every time I went back to it, Preston Garvey or some other jackass was always like, "General, we have another settlement that needs our help." And I just kept thinking, I was just there. I went to that settlement and fought the super mutants 10 minutes ago. And as soon as I've fast traveled back here, it's already in danger again. I don't feel like dealing with it anymore. Now,
So,
I'm sure
full
a lot of people in
disclosure-
the comments who love that game are thinking, "Well, Xavier, you can just choose to not do that." It's like, well, you can, but the game kind of harangues you for it, and that's not fun. I
So
don't like
full
being harassed to do
disclosure
things.
on this is that Obsidian Entertainment, the studio behind The Outer Worlds, made two of my favorite games ever, which are Fallout New Vegas, which is the best 3D Fallout game ever made, and Knights of the Old Republic 2 Star Wars, which is my favorite Star Wars story ever made. And both of those games were made, Obsidian, licensed the IP from another publisher and they made the game. And the other thing that both of them shared is that they're very buggy and kind of broken because they were developed under extremely tight deadlines. And of the two...
Well, I mean, using the engine that they used to make Fallout 3, or just any assets that were given you by Bethesda, you can kind of excuse for there being some bugs.
They gave them like 12 months to develop Fallout New Vegas. And with that tight of a development cycle, it is shocking.
That whole game was in 12 months?
Wow.
And
Holy fuck.
they gave them like 18 months to develop Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And they had to cut a ton of content from it. And some of that you can get in a mod for the game where it's called the Restored Content mod, where there's a lot of like extended little details and notes, and like there's a whole planet that was cut from the game. And that's what's really frustrating about Knights of the Old Republic 2, is that it is a fantastic story for what it is. But it could have been something really genuinely one of a kind if they'd given it more time to gestate. So it's what I would call a flawed masterpiece, because it has, in my opinion, the best storytelling of any Star Wars game. But the second half, and especially the ending, is very open-ended in a way that leaves you really wanting more, because there was a really interesting story being told. But we don't know what that story would end up being.
Well, because, I mean, didn't they lose the rights to that IP, and then the BioWare ended up making some kind of, like...
They made an MMORPG,
Yeah.
And
So-
the story is kind of ruined by the MMORPG, because the MMORPG returns to the sort of bad fanfiction school of storytelling that you see in a lot of the other Star Wars Expanded Universe stories in the games.
I mean, that's the
Versus the
universe
first
in
two
general
games.
is just monetized fan fiction.
Basically. The first two games are one of the few exceptions to that rule. The BioWare developed Knights of the Old Republic is a pretty standard RPG, and there's some criticisms with it, like basically buying into the black and white morality of the Star Wars universe to a incredibly comical degree, where one of the game mechanics is that you can choose to be dark side or light side, and your choices impact whether your force powers and whether you're an evil person or a good person. But at the end of the game, they give you a binary choice to be good or evil, which makes the rest of your choices in the entire game completely pointless. And if this sounds like another BioWare game, you're
I was
damn
about
right.
to say, you get to choose what color the explosion is.
Basically. But the thing that saves Knights of the Old Republic is that it has a twist in it that's actually a really clever twist and really inverts the formula of the Star Wars universe in an interesting way. And the second game really capitalizes on that and makes a really interesting commentary on the sort of binary morality of the Star Wars universe and the idea of fate within that universe, to tell a really interesting story about, maybe that's not such a good thing. Maybe that's kind of weird and existentially terrifying. And the villain basically wants to kill the Force, kill the god of the universe, because she doesn't like this. And it's really interesting. And there's...
Is that the lady who has no hands and just levitates two lightsabers?
Well, she loses a hand in one of the missions, and then by the end I think she loses another, but not initially. And
I remember that was like one of the very few things I saw of that game, is you sent me that clip of that boss fight, and I thought, that's awesome. We should have more shit like that for the movies.
And I just love the atmosphere of this game. It feels like apocalyptic in that there's still people and there's still a lot of stuff happening, but it feels like the end of times. It's so bleak, and I love it.
Because Star Wars is usually a lot more hopeful and kid-friendly, and, it doesn't quite have... I would say, aside from, like, Episode 3, usually it has a little bit more levity than that.
And this is part of why I liked The Last Jedi so much, is that it's a very different type of story than Knights of the Old Republic 2, but it has a similar... At least it hints at a similar message in the way that, Luke is presented and the way that they talk about the Force. Is that, maybe the Jedi weren't, like, completely 100% good, and they're the good guys and the Sith are the bad guys. And they're introducing a little bit of grayness with that story. And I think the Star Wars fans are stupid for not getting that and not liking that, but you know what? Whatever.
I don't know. I think after I've had some time to sit on it and gestate a little, I think the whole, like, let's introduce, like, gray morality to it fell a little flat for me.
I do disagree. I do feel like
with it.
I do think it's not as good as Knights of the Old Republic 2 by far.
It was brought up
but,
in, like, the middle of the movie, and then the whole last act just kind of forgot about it by showing nothing but good, like, prime good and prime bad examples of people. And, like,
but
the conclusion wasn't someone doing something morally gray.
I disagree with that in a sense, but I acknowledge where you're coming from, and that's why I said that. It touches on that, but I think it'd be interesting to expand on that in a way that the Knights of the Old Republic 2 does.
That's not going to happen.
But
you see what the new movie looks like?
But I think that's enough talking about Star Wars. I just wanted to talk about that as a preface before I start talking about The Outer Worlds. Because a lot of what makes The Outer Worlds so good is the way it builds and improves on the mechanics that you see in these last two games by Bethesda, Fallout, or by Obsidian rather, Fallout New Vegas and Knights of the Old Republic 2. Because one of the big improvements in Knights of the Old Republic 2 versus 1 is that it made the companions that you had a lot more dynamic. Because the way Knights of the Old Republic games work is that you get a ship, and then you have like these companions that you can put in your party. You can have 2 of them at a time, and then they all have like these personalities, and they travel around with you in your ship, and they respond dynamically to the situations that you're in. But the improvement that the second game made over the first one is that it made the characters a lot more dynamic, because they responded to your actions, and they either liked them or didn't like them, and you can say things that they would like or they would dislike, and you would gain influence over them, and then you could influence them to be to be better people or worse people depending on your behavior. And
it's kind of like some of the stuff that was in Mass Effect 2.
And it's like that, but you have the same thing in the Outer Worlds, except it's even better. Because not only will the companions talk to you based upon the situation that you're in and the places that you're going to, but in a lot of cases they'll also talk to each other.
So that takes a lot of work to put something like that in a game.
Exactly.
Put so much extra dialogue.
And then they can also get involved in the conversations that you have with other NPCs in the world. Maybe if they have a relationship there, if they've experienced something similar. And then they have their own little side quests, and they can talk to each other about it. It's a really added layer of immersion, because your companions
feels like the characters are actually there and not
feel
just
like real people that you kind of like.
NPCs who you can swap out.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of my criticisms of New Vegas, is that the companions weren't all that interesting. They felt sort of shoehorned in. Probably because they didn't have the development time.
Yeah, I mean, if they had more time, they probably would have polished that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I got a little annoyed at the companions in Fallout 4, because there were so many of them, and some of them started to feel like they had the exact same gimmick. Mm-hmm. And I really felt like they weren't adding a whole lot to the combat or the gameplay. They were just kind of just there, and it was more like, which one do you want to be your crush? Which one do you want to have a romance scene with, over which one's going to ultimately help you, through the right mission.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could just kind of bring anybody for anything, and it doesn't really change shit. Because you could just equip them with whatever gear you felt like.
Another cool thing about the companions in the Outer Worlds is that they all have their own abilities, but you can also give them perks that modify your abilities. So you could have them in your party, and these perks modify the group's abilities.
Like The Sim.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's really cool is the progression tree. Non-combat skills, this time they have an impact on combat. If you have better speech skill, then you can then characters NPCs, enemies will become terrified of you when you attack them. So if you've
been able to talk them down or something,
no, they just run away and they become terrified of you, and they won't attack you for a certain amount of time. So the thing about that's cool is that even if you sink all your progression points into non-combat skills, that still floats into combat, which means that you don't have to worry about having a certain amount of points that you have to put into combat. All of those skills interact with each other in an interesting way.
So it's not just a choice between, do I want a good hack skill, or do I want a good lockpick skill, or do I want to actually be able to use my guns?
Exactly.
Because I remember that being kind of a big problem with some of the other games we've been talking about here, is that they kind of don't... I mean, it's either like Mass Effect, where you can just beat the game, really, no matter which class you pick, it doesn't matter. It's really just a preference of little tiny gameplay things that don't affect anything. or if it does have a lot of effect, like in a Bethesda game, usually it's like really annoying because sometimes you feel like you have to just put everything into speech in order to pass some segments, or everything into hack.
Yeah.
Edit out that dead air. That was awkward.
Sorry. I think I haven't finished the game. I'm about 10 hours in. But I'm just really... I'm really stunned by the way that Obsidian has just taken all the stuff that they've learned from these flawed but very, very memorable RPGs and just made something really unique and cohesive with it. I love it. It's a lot of fun. The combat is kind of so-so, but it's not annoying by any stretch. So I didn't mind it. The VATS bullet time mechanic is it's more useful than it used to be. It's kind of useless initially, but you can level it up into something interesting. But it's not bad. And the thing that resembles Fallout about it is the sensibilities and the story and the world, because it's not like Mass Effect or the Knights of the Old Republic where it's a grand struggle between good and evil for the fate of humanity. It's just we're in this star system ruled by corporations, and late capitalism is getting us all down. So, like, you know, you can do something about it if you want, or you can get rich by cozying up with the corporate folks.
Huh.
Or you can try to have a middle ground.
Gives me some Tales from the Borderlands kind of vibes.
Kinda. I mean, I don't know. I've never seen it.
Tales from the Borderlands is the only Borderlands game I like because I like a lot of the themes. I like the characters. But most of all, I think that the sense of humor in that game is really funny.
Oh, the sense of humor in this game is real great, too.
You know what game has a great sense of humor? Superhero Squad on PS2. A real man plays a game like that. That's what I've been playing.
You know what
over here with your fucking 2019 kick-ass RPGs with a big budget, and I'm here playing this PS2 game where everyone's a chibi version of a Marvel character that's like 80% dumber just to make it more marketable to small children.
You know what other game has a real good sense of humor?
What?
Not Borderlands. Hey, do you
I'm
kids
making
like
you wait.
dubstep?
You're making me wait.
What, hold on.
Yes.
What is it?
Why? What is it? What's this? It's a rhetorical question. What is it?
Destroy all humans.
Ah, yeah. Are you
We
excited
finished
that's
that
getting a
recently.
remake?
We did.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
You know what? I think it's super funny that we finished it when we did, because I found out that the sequel actually got added to PlayStation Store like the next day. So we can... You know what else is nice? Destroy All Humans 2 has 2-player co-op.
Yes!
So now I'll just be player 1 and we'll get through it a lot faster.
Because I'm bad at video games.
No, it's okay. You just don't play him as often because you didn't quite like grow up with him like I did. I was a little kid who was like just watching my parents play GTA San Andreas and MK Trilogy and Resident Evil 2, and I got into that stuff at a really young age.
You fucking nerd.
While as for you, video games was something that you got into in like your teenage years after I kept going, hey, you should check this out.
No, I did get into video games, just very different ones.
Oh my god, I keep falling into lava. By the way, that Superhero Squad game, I was joking. Please don't take me serious. It's terrible. It's awful.
What are you
Don't touch it.
playing?
I'm playing Marvel Superhero Squad on PS2.
Oh, try the Harry Potter.
No, we're gonna play that together.
Oh.
Why do you always make these noises?
I want to play Harry Potter.
We'll play Lego Harry Potter, don't worry. I made sure I get a 2-player game.
Okay.
You know what the real good shit is?
What the fucking... What?
Lego
What, huh?
Star Wars.
Lego Star Wars... You know what? I think there's only, like, 2 Lego games that I didn't like. For the most part, all of them are pretty awesome.
What?
I remember I wasn't a big fan of Lego Batman 1 because I felt like they kind of limited themselves gameplay-wise by having only 2 main characters, really. You know, Batman and Robin. The Lego format of gameplay really works best when you have, like, a super massive cast of characters to play with. So they can all have different gimmicks and gadgets.
I remember when I was a kid, we used to love playing Lego Star Wars and playing as the Gonk droid.
Oh, the Gonk droid is the best because he can do literally nothing. He just walks around and just says Gonk.
And he walks around really slowly too. So
It's
like,
just
if
it's
you wanna
basically
go...
a fucking trash can with legs, and the legs are like 2 inches long, so it just kind of waddles.
And the only
slowly.
time you ever see this in Star Wars is when the Gonk droid is being tortured in one of the Star Wars sequels.
The Gonk droid was in Han Solo. I saw that recently.
Fucking Han Solo. You want to talk about that piece of shit now?
I didn't hate it. I forgot like 80% of it an hour after I watched it.
Han Solo is the blandest movie ever made. It has like 4...
It wasn't bad.
No,
but
it
wasn't good.
It's structurally a huge mess because it has like 4 opening scenes. It starts 4 separate times. And then you're like, okay, so now we're going to get into the plot. No, okay, so now we're going to get into the plot. Because
I remember it introduced a whole cast of characters.
And then you
like
killed them
Woody
off,
Harrelson's
like 5
buddies.
minutes later.
And then killed them all off. And it's like, why'd you, create all those characters just to get rid of them that quick?
Because the whole point of the story isn't to tell an interesting story. It's to create a backstory for the actual interesting story, which we've already seen.
Well, hold on. I think you're being unfair. It's not... Okay. It's also to create lots of action figures. So let's introduce more characters in the first act that won't be in the rest of the movie.
Oh yeah, I gotta get my Woody Harrelson action figure, or
when I get out of here, there's gonna be carnage.
I also love how they're really, really trying to recreate the Han Solo Leia dynamic with Han Solo and Lady from Game of Thrones, except they have no chemistry.
I feel like I'm in like a weird minority for thinking that actress is very boring in like everything. Like she was awful as Sarah Connor.
She's a decent actress, but I feel like she just has terrible agents.
I've seen
She
her
keeps getting put
from
in bad
different
stuff.
movies.
She's in that
like
new Christmas movie coming out that's obviously about her and that guy being a ghost.
We're talking about the... I didn't realize until I watched Purge again that she was the wife there. Like the first
What?
movie.
No,
Yeah.
you're thinking of Lena Headey.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about a different
Amelia
Game of
Clarke.
Thrones lady.
Oh, okay.
No, Lena
okay.
Headey's cool. She was great in Sarah
Dredd.
Connor Chronicles and Dredd. And
Oh, because you
she's in The
said Sarah
Purge.
Connor, so I thought you were talking about her.
No, I'm talking about the other lady in Game of Thrones who is Sarah Connor.
She was Sarah
Oh,
Connor in
okay,
Terminator Genesis.
Yeah.
That's so weird that 2 different ladies from Game of Thrones were Sarah Connor.
So I got confused. I forgot that Emilia Clarke was Sarah Connor too.
So back
Who's
to Han
Daenerys
Solo.
Targaryen? Yeah, Amelia Clarke. Okay.
So back to Han Solo. They keep trying to have that romance between Amelia Clarke and Alden Ehrenreich. It just never works, because their entire relationship is, Han Solo, I want to be with you. Lady, I'm obviously working for the evil people. Don't stay away from me. I'm evil now. And that's their whole relationship. Like, she never even, briefly is like, okay, I'll, be with you, maybe. Or, hints at it. Or maybe she breaks down for a second and has second thoughts about not wanting to be with him. And because there's
no, she's just always, I want to be the bad guy.
The fun thing about
Billie Eilish song.
The fun thing about Han Solo and Leia is the back and forth. It's the back and forth between the two of them, you know, the will they, won't they. If it's just they won't, it's not interesting.
Yeah.
Remember when Lando had a sidekick who was a robot that wanted to fuck him?
And he wanted to fuck her?
And that robot got killed off after like 10 minutes.
Okay, so my hot
became
take...
the ship AI and the Falcon, but doesn't speak, so like you can't even tell.
So my hot take about that character in that story is that robot, the Marxist robot who's in love with Childish Gambino, is the only good part of that movie. Because it's the only part that's interesting is when she accidentally starts a revolt in the underground in the mining facility.
Yeah, that was at least like something creative and clever. Like
it's
you don't
creative
really talk
and clever
about how robots are basically slaves in the Star Wars universe. That's something that was new.
That was new, and she had a personality. Imagine that.
And then became the ship AI and the Millennium Falcon, except you can't tell because she never speaks anymore after that.
The other thing that annoys me about Han Solo is how gray the color palette is. And I have a theory about this. The color palette is so gray, and a lot of the times scenes are so dark. They're so underlit that you can't see the room. You can barely see what's going on.
Oh my God.
And my theory about this is, you know how they basically reshot 75% of the movie because they didn't like that the directors were actually having fun with the source material.
Well, they're basically making it a comedy film.
My theory is that they reshot things, but they didn't have enough of budget to like rebuild all the sets, so they underlit
so they just
it.
Built them halfway up and then made it dark,
so they couldn't see.
Hey, why does the Millennium Falcon look so fucking bright and clean and pristine when they first start piloting it?
Even though it's owned by a smuggler at that point, it's not like they get it off the factory.
But like, like 10 years later, by the time New Hope happens, the whole inside of the ship has a layer of brown dirt on it, and it's like, what did they do in there all that time? I saw someone tweet, Were Han and Chewie smuggling diarrhea and coffee beans for 10 years?
No, it's like the interior of Peter Quill's ship. Just don't shine a black light, whatever you do.
It'll look like a Jackson Pollock painting in here.
So much semen.
How does Peter Quill know who Jackson Pollock is? He left Earth when he was like 8.
He probably just came back a couple of times. Or maybe he has like an internet connection.
The internet connects to space.
What? There's a satellite there.
Listen, if
he doesn't go to a different side of the galaxy.
If Thanos can hack Nebula, anything can happen.
Alpha Centauri.
Why? How'd you know? You haven't been in space.
Yeah,
Duh.
Stop trying to fact check things you don't know about, Xavier.
Duh. How'd you know?
How did he even know the name of the actor in Footloose? Like, what 10-year-old knows, oh, that's Kevin Bacon?
Who doesn't know Kevin Bacon?
Small children who probably don't have access to the internet because it was like 1982.
Maybe he just saw Footloose the weekend before or something. Or maybe he was just, his mom was a big Cheers fan. And that's why it would get 0 ratings.
And you know what? James Gunn is a hack. I bet his Suicide Squad movie is gonna be even better than the first.
I'll bet there won't even be any suicide in the Suicide Squad movie. What a hack.
I bet the squad will be like really happy in this one.
And I'll bet they'll tell jokes to each other. How dare they?
I bet the movie will have editing this time.
They won't hire it out a trailer company to edit the movie for them?
I hope there's 15 pop songs in the first 10 minutes of this one, too.
And then no pop songs in the rest of it.
Man, we should all just sit around and watch Suicide Squad sometime soon and just laugh.
Fuck no. I'm not gonna do that shit.
I would love to do that.
Then again, you made us watch Rampage.
We didn't even finish Rampage. Be fair, come on. I didn't make us watch all of Rampage.
I still don't forgive you for that.
Man, Rampage is awesome. If you want to watch a movie that just doesn't know how to be filmed.
180-degree rule? What's that? Editing? What's that?
No, just film every shot handheld and make it as shaky and violent and weird as possible.
Oh my god.
So, like, it seems tense, but even in, like, casual dialogue scene. There's a scene where the main character's just talking to his parents while he's just, like, on the couch in his living room. And the camera is shaking everywhere, and they're just, like, just kind of patronizing him because he's, like, kind of a fucking... He's just a slob, and that's it.
Also, in the Uwe Boll School of Filmmaking, choose actors who have the exact opposite of charisma.
Well, how much charisma do you need to play a mass shooter?
Well, if you want to want somebody to identify with the lead character, he needs to be at least likable. At least initially.
Can we talk about the Joker? Because I think that's so fucking fascinating and crazy.
I've never seen it. I haven't seen it yet, so no.
You can't.
I just mean, like, just not the actual movie itself, just everything surrounding it.
You wanna talk about fucking Jared Leto being a dumbass?
Yeah. But hold on, okay.
My other favorite thing was an anecdote about Joker was just how much the studio did not have faith in that movie, to the point where...
And now it's the highest grossing rated R film ever.
And it's going to have about as much of a profit margin as Avengers Infinity War.
Oh my god.
So
it was so cheap to film. It was filmed for like, what was it, like 48 million? And now
55 to 70.
Yeah, and it's about to crack $1 billion at the box office.
It's probably going to top off at around 900 million, and they spent only about 100 million to market it. So
it's a good movie.
So the thing with Joker,
Anna and I saw that together in the Philippines.
There's two anecdotes about it. There's the anecdote about it that's fantastic, which is Warner Brothers had no faith in that movie. So in the Hollywood Reporter article about Jared Leto being a dumbass about that movie existing, they also reported that Warner Brothers cut the budget down as much as possible because they thought that Todd Phillips would say no to making the movie if he had a low budget. But instead he was like, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a real filmmaker doing a low-budget, gritty movie. And then, on top of that, they enlisted two separate companies, Village Roadshow Pictures and Braun Creative, to co-invest in the movie because they wanted to share the risk, even though it was just a $60 million movie, because they were that scared about it bombing. So now, it's like one of the most profitable movies of all time, but they're going to have to share that because they didn't want to take the risk.
So, nobody wins except Todd Phillips.
Well, I mean, Warner Brothers is still going to make all the money. They're just going to have to share a little bit of it.
Yeah, but still, like, just imagine having to, like, what was it? They shared it with two other companies, you said?
Yeah.
Does that mean that they only get a third?
No idea. It's hard to tell how these things work out. Complicated deals, creative Hollywood accounting, but they're just going to not have all the profit, is the point.
Well, that's egg on their face for, like, not giving it a chance. But I think it's fascinating that movie is doing as well as it is, because it's so counterculture to MCU. It's, like, as far as you can possibly get from, like, a big Hollywood blockbuster movie. It has, like, one action sequence, which is very toned down and, like, slow. Mm-hmm. And it's, like, it's such a character heavy, like it's a character study, and it's just so slow paced and dramatic and dark. And I was watching it and thinking, wow, this is gonna make no money. People are gonna hate this. And now it's a fucking massive runaway success, and
I think
I'm
what you can learn...
surprised.
I think what you learn about what this movie teaches people is that there's no such thing as bad publicity. Because this movie was in the headlines
you know what?
so many times. There was all the headlines about, oh, this movie is going to inspire school shootings. This movie is so controversial. This movie is so edgy.
The fact that no shootings or violence of any kind has happened so far. That is awesome. That makes so many, like, quote-unquote reputable internet news sources look like complete assholes, because it almost got to the point where it seemed like they were trying to goad serial killers to, like, just go nuts.
I'm not going to comment on that because I don't care, but my point is all of that was fucking marketing.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, because
there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Aren't CNN and Warner Bros. Like the same current parent company?
Yes. But
no. Why would
let's
they be
focused.
trying to trash talk their own movie?
They're functionally independent of each other. But
okay.
The point that I'm trying to get at is that I was thinking about this, and why Joker did as well as it did is that part of it is that it's edgy and controversial, but the other part of it is that it's edgy, controversial in a comic book movie, which means that with a comic book movie you have all these clickbait news sources spreading stuff everywhere, which basically means that you have a layer of free publicity built in. You don't have to pay the marketing fees. Just by being
a comic book movie at all, it's just going to get like all this, like every nerd news source, like every comicbook.com or CBR is going to immediately gravitate towards anything related to the film for clicks.
And then
if this same exact movie was like just didn't have anything to do with clowns and was just about just some mentally ill guy that causes a riot, it would never have.
It would make like 100 million max. It would have gone to a couple art house theaters. That's about it. And that's my point, is that comic book movies have become such an institution these days that you can basically use that as a vehicle to tell whatever story you want. And because
which is the thing you and I have been saying we wanted for forever. We're like, just experiment with different genre pieces and just use superhero as like kind of just a recurring flavor, like an aesthetic thing.
And because it's a comic book movie, you have this built-in fan base and this built-in marketing tool that will cause that to be even more. You basically have free marketing.
So you can be successful as a superhero movie without having to be like really formulaic, by the numbers, family friendly. You don't need to plug in all the numbers. It's easier, but it's not impossible to break the MCU model.
Because there's so much stuff out there. There's so much stuff to watch. There's so much stuff to listen to. There's so much stuff to read that if you have a way of getting into people's minds more easily, then that's a big advantage, and that's what comic books are allowing movie companies to do.
Well, I mean, it's just such a colorful, fun world to play with that I mean, they're all just so memorable. Even the lame stuff in comic books.
And more importantly, there's
stuff.
people like you and me who are going to talk about it.
Yeah. But, okay, for newer listeners, because I'm sure this is probably one of the first podcasts to go up in a while, and maybe they haven't heard other ones, I would like to clarify, David and I do not hate the MCU, nor are we trying to, like, bash on it a whole lot. We just prefer a lot of variety in movies, and the thing about the MCU... Hey, shush, you quiet, you. The MCU tries very hard to make all of their movies feel kind of like all of their other movies, just for the sake of cohesion. They want the whole universe to feel very similar, so that it's like easy to grasp, but that they're all connected. While as we've always been kind of behind the idea of just like, no, go crazy. Like, comic books themselves, they all tell these stories in the same universe, but they're very far apart. Like, Moon Knight is very different from Power Pack, but they're happening in the same city. So we kind of appreciate whenever comic book movies, break the mold and try something different.
Maybe that's why this Joker movie became really successful because of that.
It's just because do you think people are getting tired of seeing the same thing over and over? I mean, especially after, like, Endgame just happened.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that they're tired of seeing the same thing. They just like to see this and that. Because
so
the next Marvel movie...
They want something different as well.
Yeah.
People aren't going
That's almost really encouraging.
People aren't going to stop seeing MCU movies at this point.
No, I mean, it's a tried and tested method. It works.
Because, here's my take for me. The reason why this Joker movie became really successful. Because it's different. It's far from what we saw or how we saw how we saw Joker like growing up, because the Joker that we know is the 100% character is how who's that Joker from Dark Knight?
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, that's Joker. But
for a lot of people, it is, yeah.
Yeah, but this Joker, the movie, it's different. It's a good way to tell his story.
And it's not bad like the Joker that we shall not mention.
Oh. Yeah, because, like, Dark Knight Joker is like this, like, really intelligent criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
Who's got a plan. Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is
a mentally ill.
He's just this force of chaos on accident. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a plan. He just accidentally makes things happen.
Yeah, and here's also the thing: how would this Joker plan to overtake Gotham if he's?
I don't know. I think he just do stuff and it would work out. He seems to just kind of improv, and it just works for him, even when he doesn't want it to.
I think I'm gonna call it quits on the Joker right there because I have not seen it.
We can't spoil it for him.
Yeah.
It's already been spoiled by the internet, or at least the meme moments have been.
But
like
you should
the gentrification
see it. You
of a
should
staircase.
watch it, David. It's really good.
Man,
I feel like
staircase shit is really funny.
I feel like I would react sort of weirdly to have all the controversy around it. I want to let all that controversy and all the talk and the discourse around it to die down before I see it, because I just want to see the movie in and of itself. And I'm just gonna give myself the time I need to let the movie distance itself from Joker, the cultural event.
Okay.
So you can enjoy it less as like this big political thing that happened, and more as just, it's a movie.
Exactly.
So you're gonna let it die down a little before you watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I do that too. Like, I don't want to go with the hype.
You know what? That's what I did with Captain Marvel. Is I was like, I don't want to just like get in on it while it's really heated and a big point of debate right now. I'm gonna watch it like 4 months after the fact, and then just be like, yeah, it was alright. It was a movie.
Yeah,
I don't hate it.
Sometimes.
I don't think it was like the worst thing that's ever happened. I don't think it's like the greatest movie ever either way. It's just it happened. It exists.
I just didn't see it because the trailers looked like shit.
It's fine. I mean, I cracked a little bit of a smile at the end when she just started kicking everyone's ass, and then it was kind of ruined because I kept thinking, oh man, we could have had this scene in Dark Phoenix instead, but they got to it first here.
I saw it and I thought, this is the most mediocre movie I've ever seen. Like, it is so actively not good and not bad. It's kind of stunning.
It's is it the MCU's Han Solo?
It's the MCU's Ocean's 8.
I'd like to point out, it's not a political statement we're making, because Han Solo stars a white straight man, and it's still pretty lame.
Ocean's 8 is the it's the female-led spin-off of Ocean's 11, right? With Sandra Bullock playing George Clooney's sister, right? It is.
Really? I haven't
That's
seen
what
it.
it's about?
That's what it's about.
That sounds like a fake movie. That sounds like a parody. It's like Sandra Bullock is
they're all
the guy
female?
from the other movie's sister, who's also a heist person.
Yes,
They're
that's
all
what it
female?
is, and
Jeez.
they're all female, and it's so aggressively mediocre that I considered writing a video about it called "The Dystopia of Ocean's 8" because Ocean's 8, and by extension Captain Marvel, is exactly what studios want. It's pretending to be progressive without actually being progressive, but it's also... It is the perfect definition of product and content because it's entertaining, but it's like eating a meal of just French fries. It fills you.
My sister does that constantly.
But it's not very nutritious.
There's chicken nuggets right here.
No, just French fries, not even chicken nuggets. Because chicken nuggets at least have a little bit of protein in it. I'm saying just French fries. Because it's just carbs. It fills you, but you feel empty afterwards. And that's what Ocean's 8 is, and that's what, by extension, Captain Marvel is. But with Joker, I'm just, like I said, I'm just gonna let that wait. So instead of watching the Joker, you want to know what movie I saw recently? I saw High Life. I talked about this in the chat.
I was about to actually jokingly suggest, what was it, The Lighthouse.
No, that's another movie released by the same company. I saw High Life, which has so much rape.
Oh my god.
It has almost as much rape as Elle does.
Oh my god, and rape? Oh, there's so much in that movie.
What? High Life is that with Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson stars the same.
It's
the same guy who stars in a High Life.
Yeah, I
or
feel
rather,
like
The
I've
Lighthouse.
seen a teaser of that.
High Lighthouse.
High Life is directed by a 70-year-old French woman. It's exactly the kind of space movie you would imagine is written and directed by a 70-year-old French woman.
Why?
Boy, those French really like making movies about rape.
It's got a very interesting view of like sexuality, and it's all about the human experience and like taboos and how we're gonna live in like this sort of world. And I don't know half of what it's about. It's just weird, and it made me very uncomfortable.
But you still watched it?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Would you recommend it for someone who doesn't like rape?
Of course
Okay,
not.
listen. If this is, and I mean this by the actual psychological definition, if it's like a trigger for you, then don't watch it. It makes me uncomfortable, and it's too realistic for some people. But I think that if you're okay with this sort of thing, it treats it with the appropriate narrative gravitas that is necessary.
It's not trashy.
It's not trashy. It's not exploitative.
Exploitative.
I feel like it has the same premise. Well, not like plot or premise, but what David was saying is when he was saying it, one thing came to mind, that Netflix show that I was talking to you about, Unbreakable. Remember that?
I'm not. Which one?
Unbreakable. I don't know if you've heard
Kimmy
about
Schmidt?
it, David.
I have not.
Are you talking about the movie where Bruce Willis is a superhero,
No,
or the
no.
movie or the TV show where Kimmy Schmidt gets out of a bomb shelter and decides to reintegrate?
Maybe
with
it's
society?
not Unbreakable. Let me search it for you.
Look up the title, because I'm certain you're thinking of a different thing. Alright, let's, what do we talk about while she's pulling up Netflix?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so I saw something on Twitter that Becky retweeted, which is, what's your Gordon Ramsay insult? So I'm going to tell you what's your Gordon Ramsay insult.
I thought it was all those cosplayers with big butts, because Becky retweets that too.
True.
Fucking called out!
So what's your month of birth? July. Okay.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Sorry.
So your Gordon Ramsay insult, Xavier, is, what the fuck are you doing, you right bitch?
What the fuck are you doing, you right bitch?
Exactly.
What?
Mine is, give me your jacket, you useless fuckface. That's a good one.
What you guys are talking about?
Anna, you're born in April.
Yeah.
A-L.
A-L, so...
What's hers?
Get out, you stupid imbecile. Get out, you stupid imbecile.
I feel like something I would say.
Pretty soon she'll have to change it to get out, you stupid bitch.
The stupid imbecile is the moon response to this one.
But okay,
by the way, did you guys know that I'm engaged to Anna?
Yeah.
Most of the people who listen to the podcast follow you on Twitter, so I think it's a reasonable assumption to make.
All right, yeah, I think they would know.
Yeah, but the show I was talking about, it's not Unbreakable, it's Unbelievable.
Okay.
It's based from
you know
true
what?
events.
You're fucking unbelievable. God damn it! You don't even check the title.
What you're saying
is
that Unbelievable actually treats its source material with respect versus being trashy like 13 Reasons Why is.
It made me uncomfortable
I
for
like
the
how
first
in 13 Reasons
3
Why
episodes.
The girl just comes back in season 3 as a ghost because they were like, we need the actress to still be here. So she just shows up and like talks to the main character as a fucking spirit from the beyond.
That's some Riverdale shit right there.
God. Is that season 2?
Riverdale is insane.
That's season 2 of 13 Reasons Why? She's a ghost?
She's season 3.
Oh, season 3. What's season 2 about?
2 or 3. It's one of those. Well, season 1 is like, to my understanding, finding out why she committed suicide bit by bit.
No, I've seen that.
Like, it turns out there's a conspiracy and other people may have committed suicide, I think.
Oh.
And then season 3 is about, I don't even know what the fuck it's about at that point.
Because I've
I don't
seen
know how
season
they
1.
managed to stretch it out this long.
Ask Jess about it.
Has Jess seen all of it?
I remember, what was it, Jess on Twitter? She had a tweet thread about it a couple months ago.
You know what?
She was very angry about it.
I admire her ability to sit through stories she actively hates, like, all the way to the end. Like, she's the only other person I know who's read that comic, The Boys, back to front, like I have. And she's the only other person I could talk to about it. And her and I disagree. I thought it was okay. Sometimes it tries too hard to be edgy, but I liked it overall. She hates that comic, and she read 60 issues of it, knowing full well that she wasn't gonna like it. Like, after the first, 10 or 15, she's like, yeah, if it's just like this the whole way through, I'm probably not gonna enjoy the rest of it. But she carried on, and then at the end of it, she's like, wow, that was rough.
I can't do that.
Me too.
I'm so busy with just school and stuff that I don't have time for, bad shit. You know the other movie I watched recently?
Tolerance for stuff I hate either. What's that?
You know the other movie I watched recently? I saw it on Best of the Worst. No, not Best of the Worst. Review. Because Review is one of the only Red Letter Media shows I like to watch these days, because they're not stupidly shitting on things. They're just talking about movies they like, and I really like that. They had
their Half in the Bag episode on the Joker was hard to sit through to the point I actually turned it off.
I don't watch Half in the Bag anymore. I just watch.
Jay went into that movie actively hating it because I guess he just didn't like Todd Phillips, and he said the movie didn't make sense after ignoring whole 20-minute stretches of things happening and being like, there was no development. It's like the whole movie was developing that thing.
So my point is that. My point, if you'll allow me to go back, is that I don't watch their Half in the Bags. I watch reviews because they talk about movies they like, and that passion, that positivity is something that I really like. So on review recently, they had The Exorcist 3, and The Exorcist 3 is on Amazon Prime. So I watched The Exorcist 3 even though I haven't seen The Exorcist 1 or The Exorcist 2. I thought it was pretty rad, actually, because it's about a serial killer who says he's possessed by somebody who's dead, and he says it's the body of the priest from the first Exorcist who says he's possessed by a serial killer, and then killings in the pattern of that serial killer keep happening, even though this guy is trapped in a hospital room. And then he has these conversations with the detective who's investigating the case, and he gives him vivid details about these things. So it's pretty interesting, because what it is,
I haven't heard of that at all. That sounds really neat.
It came out in 1990, and the ending was heavily reshot by the studio because they wanted an exorcism at the ending. And full disclosure, I watched the theatrical cut instead of the director's cut, which is restored a little bit closer to the vision of the director. And the director, he's the screenwriter of the original Exorcist movie, and he also wrote the book that it was based off of. And he adapted this from his book, which was a sequel to the book. So it completely ignores The Exorcist 2, which is not a proper sequel. It was just kind of a thing that they put together to get Reagan McNeil back into the story. Exactly. So The Exorcist 3 was originally supposed to be called Legion, which is the title of the book. Because, we are Legion from the Bible and all that. Yeah. And I saw it, and I actually really liked it, even though there was the reshot ending, which is very obvious. It sticks out like a sore thumb from the rest of the movie. Because, what happens... Can I recommend you the Exorcist TV show? I think... I want to watch the original movie first. Okay, definitely do that, because the TV show is somewhat dependent on that movie. Okay. It sets the stage a lot for it. I feel The Exorcist 3 is, but in a way that allows it to be its own thing. And that's what I really liked about it. So, the ending... So basically the reshoots include... there's just these random cutaways in the middle of the movie to this priest who doesn't have anything to do with the story. And then at the end he shows up to do an exorcism. And then there's an exorcism scene. Because you gotta have an exorcism scene. Because it's an exorcist movie. Right. But apart from that, it's got this really bleak atmosphere to it. Because it's all about, this detective who's a murder detective in Washington, D.C., and he's just seen so much shit, so much violence and death and just awful things that he's just completely done, and he's tired, and he's bitter, and he's angry, and the only thing that's good in his life is his friendship with this priest. And then the priest dies in the movie, and it's so bleak in this lack of hope and atmosphere, like I was talking about earlier with Knights of the Old Republic 2. I just love the atmosphere. I love stories that pull me in with an atmosphere. So what I'm getting from this is that David really likes movies that make you feel like trash and are really dark and bleak. Well, the other thing is that it's just a really interestingly directed movie, because it's directed by... He only directed one other movie, which was another adaptation of one of his books. And it's got a very distinct style and aesthetic to it in the way that it cuts, the shot choices, and I think it's really interesting. There's this one excellent scene that they talked about in the review, which is, it's this one long take of a hospital scene, and what happens is that there's this nurse at the desk, and she keeps hearing noises, and she goes to explore things, and then a cop shows up. But they just hold on this one scene, and then she goes into a room, and you think that's going to be where there's something that happens, but then that's a fake out, and it's just the person in the room, and it goes back to like the wide shot of the hallway, and then like she walks into a doorway, she walks out, and then like the camera zooms way in, and then you see somebody following her with like a weapon or something, and it's like the best. It's the best like jump scare ever because it's so sudden after getting you into this rhythm. It's really well executed filmmaking, especially from an author, like a screenwriter. He did this.
Because a lot of the time you think they wouldn't be able to transition. It's such a different, it's going from a one medium of storytelling to another.
There's people, they're rare, but there's people who can make that jump, like Guillermo del Toro.
Miller.
Fuck you, I came up with a positive example, and you had to do a joke. We do not allow humor on this podcast.
The Spirit is not the greatest movie of all time.
The what?
The Spirit.
You know what is the greatest movie of all time? Zack Snyder's Watchmen.
Oh shit, should we watch the Zack Snyder's The Watchmen's the TV show by Akiva Goldsman or whatever?
Well, actually, the TV show is interesting because it's by Damon Lindelof, not Akiva Goldsman. But it's not an adaptation of the comic, it's a sequel
Where did I
to
get
it.
Goldsman? Yeah, that's what I thought was kind of cool, is that like the only other
it's set in the same world, just like 30 years later.
It's kind of diverging pretty hard from the actual official sequel, which is Doomsday Clock, which actually shows like a year later, and like everything's gotten real bad, and like
the whole thought process of Damon Lindelof doing this version of Watchmen, which I think is really interesting, is that his thought process was Watchmen is so specifically tied to that 1980s version of America. Ronald Reagan, consumerism, reigniting the Cold War crisis, all of that. It's so tied to that specific time period that just doing an adaptation now, it would lose all of its edge and all of its zeitgeisty relevance.
Our politics are very different now. We're doing some different stuff at this point.
There's a lot of continuity, but you need to make it more relevant to the time period that you're making it in. So he made it about present day concerns, like it's about white supremacy and terrorism and stuff like that, which are much bigger concerns.
What I find
these
interesting
days.
is like Watchmen, as you're reading it, feels like a period piece, but it was written at the exact year that it's set, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so like steeped into all of the politics at the time and everything going on that like it's timeless from the perspective of it's just gonna be forever set in the 80s.
It's timeless by virtue of being so specific about its timeliness.
Yeah. Whereas other stories will try to be like relevant. Like it goes so hard into being relevant into what stuff is going on at the time that it just kind of it's kind
never
of
like
age past that.
It's kind of like the opposite of It, where in the original book it was published in the 80s, but then it had the nostalgic version of the 50s. So when they made the movie, they did the 80s and today because that's the nostalgic cycle equivalent versus back then.
You couldn't do that with Watchmen. You couldn't just take that story and go, okay, all this, but in 2019. It just wouldn't work. There's so much you would have to change. It would be unrecognizable.
Say what you will about Reagan's era of America, but Reagan was much better at committing crimes than Donald Trump is.
Well, what's funny is in the book, do you know who the president isn't Reagan. It's an alternate universe where Nixon just kept getting reelected and was on like his like 5th term.
Yeah, I remember that. Kind of felt like that in the 80s.
Something about that kind of gives me hope, because we look back at that now and are just like, wow, things were crazy. But like everything always kind of seems like the end of the world, like everything's really fucking crazy and evil and we're never going to make it out, but it always feels that way, and we're just all of the stuff we're experiencing now is going to be just someone else's Watchmen 30 years from now, and they're going to be like, wow, that was nuts.
I can't wait until they make things about how nostalgic today was, and then I can tell my kids, you know, you're wrong. The 2010s weren't great. They fucking sucked. I was there.
They were awful to live in. They were very scary. Like, we didn't want to go to school anymore.
I can't wait to do that, because that's what, like, my parents do with me about the 1980s. No, I hated the 1980s.
But we're all watching our Stranger Things reruns going, wow, what was it really like this? And they're like, yeah, but, like, imagine also just terrifying.
Imagine also constantly worrying about the Cold War being reignited and also not having a job.
My dad tells me the 70s were really scary.
The 70s were, in a different way.
What about the 90s? Is that like the chillest decade recently?
No.
The 90s were terrifying too.
The 90s were shitty in their own way. It was kind of like the sort of a numbness. Like, things were bad, but they were bad in a way where they were sort of distant from us. So it was kind of more of a sort of cynicism about everything than a shit is actively wrong right now.
Which is the rise of grunge.
Basically.
What's today's equivalent of grunge?
SoundCloud rap. Which kind of fucking tells you about how shitty things are these days, doesn't it?
Hey, you know what's funny is I just thought of something. David, you and I can't really speak too well about like being in the 90s, but someone here can.
You know, that is true.
What?
What was it like growing up in the 90s? Because I was only there for 2 years. While you were there for all of it.
Depends on which you're asking.
Because I'm sure where you grew up, it was a different 90s than it was for us.
Yeah.
That's true.
All I can say is that
the Philippines is a very different place. I can speak to that from just having been there for a week or 2 weeks. It looks the same, but it's not quite the same. It feels like an alternate universe.
Okay, here the one thing that Xavier and his mom kept on telling me about the different things between the Philippines and the US is traffic.
Oh my god, the traffic there is insane.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if there were no stop signs and no no stoplights, no anything. Everyone just kind of winged it and was on the honor system. And, like, crosswalks were not a rule, they were more of a suggestion.
Yeah.
Everyone jaywalks, everyone speeds. There's also no posted speed limit, so everyone just kind of guesses.
Well,
you know
intersections are the scariest thing ever.
Okay, the speed posts that you're talking about, they're mainly on the highway, and we didn't like go to any main highway.
Okay, so talking about the jaywalking thing, do you know why jaywalking became a crime in the United States?
Because
I know that the name was because like it was calling someone a Jay was an insult.
Because the car companies wanted to put the blame on traffic fatalities on the individual and not on them.
It's your fault for walking across the street, not the car's fault for hitting you.
Wait, really? That's how is it there?
Yeah.
So, okay, if you hit someone jaywalking, it's the person's fault, not you.
I sneezed.
I don't think so. It's a mixed bag. It was just the company's
It's kind of a
offer.
context thing.
Yeah.
Because here, regardless of whose fault is it, it's always the driver.
It's a context thing in the United States, but it's just that the automakers wanted to get rid of liability on their end more than anything else. It was part of the whole revolution in the 20th century, especially after World War II, where basically the entire urban fabric of North America was transformed to be designed around cars. Mm-hmm. But that's enough about that. I have my soapbox about that, so let's just leave it at that.
Jeepneys are cool. I didn't ride in one, but they look neat. Okay, so basically it's like a really small bus that they just pack as many people into as possible.
And they're open.
And they're just kind of open. They don't have like doors and windows.
Yeah.
They're just kind of open to the air.
But I told you the history of jeepneys.
Yeah, wasn't the story is that they used to, like, what happened is that there was just a bunch of leftover military tanks after a war, and they're like, let's just turn this into a new taxi service.
Like World War II or something? I could imagine it would be after World War II, because I'm pretty sure America had some army military presence there for the Pacific Theater, and they might have just left some hardware behind.
No,
Which war was it, Anna?
It's not the World War II, because I am sure that before that there are already jeepneys.
Okay.
So some long ancient thing that happened.
But that's the history of
still
jeepneys.
recent enough that cars.
So it'd probably
what's
be
special about
at
them
least
is that every single one is like really uniquely designed. Like they all personalize them and put all kinds of really cool decorations on them.
So it's kind of like
every single one was like an art project.
So what you're saying is that it's kind of like the cars in Havana, Cuba, because what happened in there is after the Cuban Revolution, there was an embargo from the United States and therefore every other Western country. So Cuba couldn't get any more cars in. So there are these people who have like these old tiny 1950s cars from before the revolution, and they've kept them up to this day, and they're basically the taxi services in Havana because they can't get anything else. So it's like that.
Pretty much it.
That's cool.
Yeah, we saw some really cool designs on them. The one that I liked the most was one that had Batman the animated series art all over it.
Oh, that's nice.
So much so that I actually took a picture of that one because I thought it was so neat. Like, there was a big Batman logo on the side and then Catwoman and Joker on the back.
You know, if you send that to me, I could make it the thumbnail.
I mean, if it's a good enough picture, I can try. It was in traffic while we were driving around, so we'll see.
Do it.
Okay,
so there's one more thing I was thinking about that I wanted to talk about in terms of comic book movies. I want to talk about Bloodshot.
Bloodshot!
I love that name.
Because it hasn't even come out yet.
What's happening is that Bloodshot is an adaptation of a Valiant Entertainment comic, and Valiant is like one of those non-Marvel, non-DC publishers that popped up in the 90s. And they've established a deal, because they're owned by an entertainment company now, they've established a deal where they want to make their own comic book cinematic universe. And Bloodshot is being made at Sony Pictures with Vin Diesel as the main star, because of course it is. Yeah. Because Vin Diesel is very 90s, even though he was a star in the 2000s. And now that cinematic universe is in jeopardy because the producer, the original producer of the Fast and Furious movies, he had some bad blood with Universal or over royalties with Hobbs and Shaw. He moved his shop over to Paramount. And even though that movie was at Sony, he's moved everything over to Paramount now. You know, he's the producer behind Sonic the Hedgehog, but he's also moved the Valiant Cinematic Universe to Paramount. So now Bloodshot is going to be a comic book movie without a cinematic universe because the rest of them are going to be over at Paramount.
Oh, so it's just going to be completely disconnected from the rest, even though it's supposed to start that universe?
So it's going to be the Dracula Untold of this cinematic universe.
That's like if Iron Man came out and then, like, Paramount just kept it, and then Disney made all the rest without Iron Man.
It's going to be the Incredible Hulk of this cinematic universe.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly it. Well, I mean, can Bloodshot appear in the other ones?
We don't know yet. That'll have to be figured in court once this eventually becomes, like, a thing.
I would like to say, however, that based on the trailer, it looks very much like a mid-2000s comic book movie in that they just took a big, handsome Hollywood star who everyone loves, who's big and famous to sell the movie, and he looks abso-fucking-lutely nothing like the character in the story, and is making no attempt to, because that would make him look less like Vin Diesel. Mm-hmm. The character has pale white skin and a giant red dot on his chest, and he's always shirtless. And he has hair. That's too distinct of a look.
Though.
I need to look like Vin Diesel for this movie because I'm Vin Diesel. And how will they know it's starring Vin Diesel?
For Bloodshot and the Valiant cinematic universe. Because I want there to be the edgy 90s cinematic universe. Listen, if Rob Liefeld is not going to give this to us, I need this.
Yeah, because that got shut down, right?
It's part of Netflix now. I don't know if they're going to actually do anything with it.
No one would. It's all a bunch of terrible IPs that no one wants. No one wants to make a fucking... I don't know. What's his name? That Wolverine ripoff that has the red and silver costume?
Troll?
No, the other one.
So, I'm very interested to see how these, like, non-Marvel, non-DC comic book movies are ending up, because... MGM was supposed to be making that Rising Stars comic book movie with a screenplay by JMS, and apparently they still haven't decided to make that because they're fucking cowards.
Huh.
And I'm so disappointed in that, because I want to see Rising Stars the movie, and I want to see all these I'm just very interested to see how the genre will evolve if these really become a thing. If that makes any sense.
I think they'll kind of fall flat on their face, because as much as Joker has proven that you don't have to be the MCU to make money, it did prove that you also have to, like, have a vision and have a character that people like. Because, like, Joker's not exactly an obscure nobody. And that movie is about things. It's not just Vin Diesel shoots people, the movie, for the 45th time. I don't think they're going to really change the landscape. I think they're going to just be a bunch of Morbiuses, where they just kind of show up, no one wants them, then they disappear.
But here's the thing,
and everyone else keeps doing their same thing that they've been doing.
Here's the thing. You're ignoring one key piece of the puzzle, which is Venom.
Venom is a weird outlier.
And here's my argument. Venom happened. Venom was a huge success. Venom is the most 90s superhero movie out right now.
Because Venom is the most 90s character.
Exactly. And if there's anything that Godzilla vs. Kong, the cinematic universe, has taught us, is that all it takes is for one success for there to be a universe. That's all you need. Because the rest happens too quickly, one after another, for you to course correct once that first film, once the gears start rolling.
Yeah, because wasn't it Godzilla 2014 did really well, and then King of the Monsters did not, but they've already filmed Kong, so that's just going to come out regardless.
Well, Kong came out first, and Kong did
No, I mean, like, the crossover with Kong.
Godzilla vs. Kong, yes.
Yeah.
And that's my argument.
Already done. That's, like, in post-production right now.
That's my argument, is that if Bloodshot does well enough, and I figure it will, because Vin Diesel is a big star, especially internationally.
He's a big box office draw.
It's gonna happen.
So, we're just gonna go into this, like, kind of semi-wild, wild west of fucking weird 90s comic book movies again, where they'll just pick any random IP and just go for it.
And then we're gonna have Paramount and Sony doing that, Paramount with these Valiant adaptations, and Sony with their weird, edgy 90s Spider-Man adaptations. And then we're gonna have DC doing their DC thing, and then in the corner we're gonna have Marvel doing whatever Marvel does. So that's gonna be interesting.
So even though Fox X-Men is gone,
yes,
the Marvels, or I mean, at least the cinematic universe, comic book movie landscape is not entirely a two-party system.
Well, it's basically it is for all intents and purposes a two-party system. But the two-party system is Marvel and whoever happens to be competing against them at the moment.
So, one year that could be Sony, the next year that could be DC again, the year after that it could be a Valiant movie.
Yep.
Okay.
That's my argument.
That's not that bad. that's a kind of a system that works. There's a lot of variety you get from that. That's 4 different things.
And one thing that I do want to say is that based upon all this speculation that I'm having, I want to have one caveat, though. All this could change in a heartbeat. Because remember in 2016, after Deadpool came out, when we all thought that, like, X-Men was going to be this new big competitor, and then, like, that didn't happen because of the Marvel Disney Fox merger, all this can change in, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah, like, suddenly the Valiant universe just gets fucking canceled. They're just like, you know what? Nah. They'll just make 3 more Bloodshots and that's it.
Or maybe Bloodshot will be canceled before it's even released.
Oh, like New Mutants.
Still bitter about that. But
Is
let's
New
not talk
Mutants
about
ever
that.
gonna come out? I just want to ask, is it gonna come out?
I think it would be funny if it never came out.
A whole movie, a whole multi-million-dollar movie that just never got finished.
Because, let me repeat, the whole movie, the entire cost of making New Mutants is a fucking rounding error for Disney when they bought Fox for $70 billion. A $100 million movie even. Let's say it cost $100 million, which it definitely didn't. That's a rounding error when you're talking about this much money.
That doesn't matter. No one cares.
Exactly.
No one's in a rush to make that come out.
No one is. The director is off working on other projects now. He's making The Stand TV show for CBS, and then after that he's going to do another Stephen King adaptation for Apple.
Stephen King is doing really well right now. Stephen
course
King
he
has
is.
so many adaptations out or on the way right now. It's like he's entered the new Stephen King renaissance.
Oh my god.
It's certainly better than the last one, given that the last one gave us shit like the Tommy Knockers.
Or the Langoliers. Yeah, remember the Langoliers?
The little gremlin, bad CGI
They
eater
were
people thingies.
CGI meatballs that attack airplanes. Do you think they're gonna make a remake of Misery where she's just a Twitter stan?
You know what?
I can't wait for that.
You know
I
what?
also can't wait for Doctor Sleep. Although that
What
one
were you
actually
saying,
could be good.
Hold on. The recent Stephen King horror movie that I watched is In the Tall Grass.
How was that?
Oh yeah, the one for Netflix?
Yeah.
Got mixed reviews, but what did you think of it?
I like it because it's a different kind of horror. It's not the horror like jump scare or whatever. It's a horror like, what if this happens to me? What am I gonna do?
So
Interesting.
something a little bit more grounded and real.
And they didn't give away the ending. It's just think about what happened.
That's
What
cool.
a strange
Yeah.
concept.
I like it, but given you guys have different opinions, I don't know.
I demand that movies tell me how to think, goddammit.
Anna likes to show me a lot of movies that I've never seen before, and I would say maybe like 1 out of 5 times I'm like, yeah, that was great.
Oh my god, it's so mean.
I'm still bitter about 88 Minutes.
What about
I liked
Teeth?
it when I first saw it. Come on. Give me a
Teeth
break.
was also like Teeth in retrospect I was not happy with.
That was a bet when we saw it.
what was it a bet for? What do you mean?
I can't
You just
remember.
kind of said, "Hey, I decided I want to watch this. Let's do it."
I don't know. I can't remember, but it was a bet. It wasn't something that, oh, hey, let's watch this. It's great. Because it's funny.
I watched Gerald's Game with her, and I like that. Wait, is Gerald's Game a Stephen King thing?
Yep, it's
Yeah.
based on one of his
Oh.
short stories,
Well, that one was good.
including the degloving.
Oh, that's such a bad word. I don't like it. Well, okay, so the story goes is that that was like one of our first dates was watching that movie, and I was eating chicken wings while we were watching it, and she didn't realize the connection that would be made there between chicken wings visually and the thing that happens later in the movie. And I was like most of the way through that plate while we were getting to that scene, and then that scene happens. I'm like, I can't finish the rest of these.
I didn't know that you were gonna eat. Sorry,
Anna, you should know me by now. Or well, okay, that was around the time we first met. You know now. I'm like, if I can, I'm always eating.
Yeah, I know now.
I don't get to eat very often, so when I do, I really go for it. I'm eating Twizzlers right now, because that's all we have.
Yeah. I know now
And
that...
there's like a foot of snow outside, so I can't get anything else.
After your visit, now I know that you eat like 3 orders of Egg McMuffins. 3 orders.
The amount of food that he orders whenever we go to like a fast food restaurant when I hang out with him is disturbing. It's like more food than any normal person should be able to eat.
And I'm not super chubby. I have a good metabolism.
One of these days, this is going to end horribly for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm gonna turn 30 and my metabolism's gonna slow down, and I'm just gonna fucking explode.
No, you should cut down fast food. They're bad.
Yes.
They're processed
But it's
food.
cheap, and I'm poor.
We're gonna make homemade...
Don't be poor
food.
when you're older.
I'm trying.
Don't be poor when you're older.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just don't be poor, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Make more money, bro.
I'm just giving out such good advice, you know.
Hey,
I don't understand why.
Just don't be. Cut it out.
After my advice, like I don't see why you should have any problems in your life. You won't be
Yeah,
poor.
no, everything's going
You
well
won't be
now.
depressed.
As soon as you told me that, just
Yeah.
changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
So how's the weather over there?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm sure you know. It's like can't leave my house kind of weather.
Really? Like snow
It's bad.
weather?
Like I thought about shoveling the driveway earlier, and while it was like kind of slowing down for a second, and then I waited another like 30 minutes and it picked up way harder, and it's just a complete lost cause. There's no way.
How tall is the snow? Or how thick? Oh, right.
There's I would say like 8 to 10 inches at least.
Jeez, that's almost like a ruler.
So
You know,
like,
I'm so bitter
if
right
I stepped
now.
in the snow, that's my whole ankle just gone.
Because, like, I am here in
There.
middle of nowhere, the Midwest, where it should, by all rights, be colder. But there you are with snow on the ground, and it hasn't snowed at all here yet.
What's the weather there?
Anna hasn't ever seen snow before.
What's the
I
weather
feel-
like
I
here?
feel bad for her.
Yeah.
Cloudy
like
and
right
kinda
now.
rainy?
Oh, cloudy. No, I've seen one once.
You
But
saw it, but you didn't get to touch it.
Yeah.
When did you see it?
It was like a layover in Japan. It was snowing, so I just saw it snowing. But
Like
I
out
didn't
the window of your plane or something?
Yeah, but I didn't get to
Ah.
touch it because we're not allowed to like get out of
Leave
the
the
airport.
airport.
Yeah.
I'm gonna when you get here and you live here, which hopefully will be this year. I'm gonna. It'll probably snow within the first week that you live here, just because things like that happen. I'm gonna walk you out to the front yard, which will probably be buried. I'm just gonna shove you down and go, okay, make a snow angel, and then I'll just walk inside.
It's probably like funny to you guys because you've seen snow ever since. But for us, it's really a strange and fun thing because
I remember
never
there was
touched
even an
it.
exhibit. Her and I went to an aquarium, and they had all kinds of extra stuff there. Like, here's a section for like specifically
It's a Christmas
like
village.
Arctic. It was a Christmas village, and it had like penguins and other like Arctic animals and stuff. And there was this bit where it was just simulated snow just dropping in one spot, and it was basically just like slush from a freezer just dropping. And she like there's all these little kids holding out their hands and like letting it drop on them, and they'd be like, "Wow, this is what it's like."
No, because
And
your
I
mom,
felt it, and I was like, "Yeah, it's close enough."
your mom felt it first, and then she was like, "Oh yeah, this is snow," and then she made me
Close
like
enough.
catch it, and she said, "Yeah, that's snow for you."
Get used to that.
Ooh.
Oof.
I was just thinking about that while you were talking, and I don't know if the Philippines is in the southern hemisphere, but like, for people in the southern hemisphere, like, I don't know if he's listening to it, but if Scrubs listens to this, it's kind of weird to think of as a person in the northern hemisphere for there to be such a thing as a warm Christmas. Because
Yeah.
it's like the summer or like at least the spring or something,
Yeah.
a warm season when Christmas hits down there.
Yee. That's weird for
How
me too.
weird is that?
Because Christmas here is cold. So because I
Like
have
it doesn't snow, but
it doesn't
the
so
temperature just
yeah,
drops.
but the temperature is chilly. But because one of my high school friends lives in Australia now, and I remember like a few years back I was able to talk to him, and it was Christmas time, and I joked. I remember I told him a joke about like playing outside because it's chilly. He said, "No, I will burn because it's summer here." I was like, "What? It's summertime in Australia during Christmas? How does that feel?" It was weird for me.
That is interesting. But I think we had a good run on the podcast. Let's wrap it up here before it gets too long. Once again,
Yeah.
we occasionally talk about movies. Well, thanks for coming on to the podcast, Anna.
Sure. Anytime.
Amina.
Come back anytime.
It's
Yeah.
nice just having someone else there to fill the dead space occasionally when we just like can't figure out what to talk about. So
And
then
when I'm
Anna
looking
will
at
just
my
giggle
phone.
a little bit. Yeah.
Sometimes I
Or
forget
when I'm
that.
getting distracted playing this awful PS2 game.
No, sometimes
Why are
I
you
forget
doing that to yourself?
I'm included in
I need
the
to record it for a
podcast.
video.
Well, if there's anything you want to talk about, hit us up and we can talk about it on the Chad post.
The Chad post.
That's exactly what this is.
The Chad post.
Because we are all Chads here.
Specifically
I
one
wanted to-
person.
I stop. Cut it out. They don't need to know what happened. We just played video games, okay? I am a family-friendly icon. They don't need to know.
She was talking about herself, not you.
Yeah, oh my god. You're so
That's true.
you're so
You're so
narcissistic.
selfish and egotistical, Xavier.
Experience.
Why do you always assume everything's about you?
Because usually it is.
And with that, we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'm eating a Twizzler. Bye.
End recording now.